You even know how to read a contract, boy.
Brad Hollister's spit landed on Elijah Townsend's cheek. The office smelled like fresh carpet and expensive cologne. Elijah smelled like red Georgia clay. Brad grabbed his
Dirty
collar,
boots on
yanked
my
him off the
floor.
chair.
Mud on my desk. Get your black ass out before I call the cops!
He dragged Elijah across the tile like a sack of dirt. Elijah's knees hit the door frame. His shirt ripped at the shoulder. Then Brad shoved him through the glass door. Elijah hit the sidewalk. Brad pointed down at him.
Go find a field, boy.
Elijah didn't say a word. He just stood up, brushed the gravel off his hands. What happened next didn't just end Brad's career. It ripped open a secret this town had been hiding for decades. Man, that was just the door. You want to know who Brad really put his hands on? Stay with me. 4,200 acres of green stretched out under a pale Georgia sunrise. Pecan trees lined the dirt road in perfect rows. The air tasted like wet soil and honeysuckle. Elijah Townsend walked his land the same way his grandfather did. Slow, hands in his pockets, eyes on the tree line. His boots left deep prints in the red clay. A hawk circled above the soybean field. Somewhere behind the barn, a tractor engine coughed to life. This land had been in the Townsend family since 1947. His grandfather, Samuel Townsend, bought the first 200 acres when a black man could get killed for owning property in this part of Georgia. He paid cash, kept the deed in a fireproof box under his bed, told his children, they'll try to take it. Don't let them. Elijah didn't let them. He expanded the farm to over 4,000 acres. Soybeans, pecans, timber. His company, Townsend Agricultural Holdings, brought in $38 million a year. His trucks rolled through 3 counties. His name was on the state agricultural board. But nobody knew that by looking at him. He wore the same denim shirt every week, drove a 10-year-old pickup, never wore a watch. People saw the mud on his boots and made up their minds. That morning, Elijah sat at the kitchen table with his wife, Grace. Coffee steam drifted between them. The kitchen smelled like cast iron and bacon grease. Grace had her laptop open. Her reading glasses sat low on her nose. "That's the 4th one," she said. She turned the screen toward him. A local news article. Another black family had sold their land. 80 acres gone. The buyer was listed as Magnolia Land Partners, LLC. The broker was Piedmont Heritage Realty. 4th family in 2 years, Grace said. Same company, same broker, same story. They show up, say the land isn't worth much, pressure them to sell fast. Elijah sipped his coffee. He already knew. He'd been watching. 3 weeks ago, he received a letter from Piedmont Heritage. Polite words on thick paper. They wanted to help him evaluate his holdings. The language assumed he was in financial trouble. Like a man with 4,000 acres couldn't possibly be doing fine. Grace had read it twice. "This letter talks to you like you're behind on rent." Elijah opened the kitchen drawer. Inside, next to a flashlight and a box of .22 shells, was a small body camera. Black plastic, red button. He bought it 2 months ago after hearing Old Man Herschel's story. Herschel Davis was 83. Lived down the road. Owned 60 acres his family had worked for generations. The Piedmont people came to his door 3 times. Each time, they offered less. Each time, they talked faster. His kids wanted him to sell. Herschel was tired. He stopped by that morning, stood on Elijah's porch with his hat in his hands. His voice shook. "They came again, Elijah. Said if I don't sell now, I'll lose it to taxes." Elijah told him, "Don't sign anything. Not yet." After Herschel left, Elijah clipped the body camera inside his shirt pocket. He pressed the red button. A tiny light blinked once, then went steady. Grace watched him from the doorway. "You really going in there?" "They sent me an invitation," Elijah said. "Be rude not to show up." He grabbed his keys. The screen door slapped shut behind him. Gravel crunched under his boots. He told Grace he'd be back by lunch. He had no idea he wouldn't make it home until long after dark. And by then, the whole county would know his name. The Piedmont Heritage Realty office sat on Main Street between a bank and a sandwich shop. Big glass windows, white walls, a row of potted plants by the door that looked like nobody ever watered them. Elijah pushed through the front door. A bell chimed. Cold air hit his face. The place smelled like printer ink and lemon cleaner. 3 agents sat at polished desks. A young woman at the front, 2 men near the back. All white, all dressed sharp. They looked up at the same time. Elijah's boots left a faint red smudge on the tile. His denim shirt had a coffee stain near the pocket. His hands were rough, nails dark with soil. He looked like a man who worked for a living, and in this office, that was the wrong thing to look like. The receptionist tilted her head. "Can I help you?" "I got a letter about my property," Elijah said. "I'd like to talk to someone about it." "Do you have an appointment?" "No, ma'am." She smiled the kind of smile that means no. "Our agents are pretty booked today. Maybe you could come back another time?" "I'll wait," Elijah said. He sat down in a leather chair near the window, set his hat on his knee. The receptionist glanced at the 2 men in the back. One of them shrugged. That's when Brad Hollister walked in. He came from the hallway like he owned the building. Polo shirt tucked in, silver watch, hair combed back with product that caught the overhead light. He carried a tablet in one hand and a green smoothie in the other. Brad looked at Elijah the way you look at a stain on your carpet. "What can we do for you, sir?" The "sir" came out like a courtesy he didn't mean. Elijah handed him the letter. Brad scanned it, pulled up something on his tablet. His thumb scrolled fast. Then it stopped. Something changed behind his eyes. Elijah watched it happen. The fake warmth drained out of Brad's face. His jaw tightened. He'd seen the acreage number. 4,200 acres. Brad recovered fast, smiled again, started talking like a machine. "Well, the current market has a lot of variables, estate planning, tax burdens. You want to be smart about timing. We could set up a consultation." "What's the land worth?" Elijah asked. Brad blinked. "That depends on a lot of factors." "What factors?" Brad didn't like that. He set his smoothie down. "Let me check with my team. Give me a minute." He disappeared down the hallway. Elijah sat still. The office was quiet. Just the hum of the air conditioner and the click of someone typing. Then he heard it. Through the thin wall, Brad's voice, low, fast, talking to someone. Most of the words were muffled, but 2 phrases came through clean. The Townsend parcel. And then, "He doesn't know what it's worth with the rezoning." Elijah's hand drifted to his chest pocket. The red light was still blinking. He kept his face perfectly still, but inside, everything had just changed. Brad came back different. His shoulders were higher. His smile was gone. He walked straight to Elijah and stood over him. Too close. The smell of his cologne mixed with something sour underneath it, like sweat trying to hide behind a $100 bottle. "So here's the thing," Brad said. "We're actually by appointment only. You'll need to come back when we have availability." Elijah didn't stand up. "You sent me a letter offering to evaluate my property. I'm here for that evaluation. And I'm telling you we can't do that today." "Then I'll take a copy of the market analysis you mentioned on the phone just now." Brad's face went tight. His nostrils flared. He'd heard Elijah hear him. "I don't know what you think you heard, but this office is closed to walk-ins. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." Elijah stayed seated.
His voice was level, calm as a man ordering coffee. "I'd like to speak with your managing broker." "He's not available." "I'll wait." "No, you won't."
The air in the room shifted. The receptionist stopped typing. One of the agents in the back slowly rolled his chair away from his desk. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder, like even the building could feel what was about to happen. Brad leaned down, close enough that Elijah could see the vein pulsing in his neck. "I'm going to say this one time. Get out of my office before I call the police." Elijah looked him in the eye. "What's your broker license number?" That was the match. Brad grabbed Elijah's arm, hard, fingers digging into the muscle above the elbow. Elijah pulled back. Brad didn't let go. He grabbed Elijah's collar with both hands and yanked him out of the chair. The leather seat rocked backward and hit the window. A potted plant tipped off the ledge and cracked on the floor. Dirt scattered across the white tile like gunpowder. Brad dragged him, not toward the hallway, toward the front door. Elijah's boots scraped across tile. His shirt pulled tight across his throat. The fabric made a sound like paper tearing. One button popped off and bounced under a desk. Dana Price stood up. She was the only black face in that office, 32 years old, junior agent. She'd been at Piedmont Heritage for 14 months. Her hand went to her mouth first, then her phone. She held it low behind her computer monitor. The screen was facing Brad's back. She pressed record. The other agents watched. One man crossed his arms. Another looked down at his keyboard like the letters suddenly fascinated him. Nobody said a word. Nobody stepped forward. Brad kicked the glass door open with his foot. The hinges screamed. Hot Georgia air rushed in, thick with humidity and the smell of asphalt baking in the sun. He shoved Elijah through the doorway. Elijah stumbled. His right knee hit the concrete step. His palms slammed the sidewalk. The skin tore open on both hands. Blood dotted the hot pavement. A woman walking her dog across the street stopped and stared. Brad stood in the doorway, breathing hard, sweat on his forehead. He pointed down at Elijah like he was pointing at a dog that got off its chain. "Don't come back. Ever." The glass door swung shut. Brad's reflection disappeared behind the glare of the afternoon sun. Elijah stayed on the ground for 3 seconds. The concrete burned under his palms. He could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. A car horn somewhere down Main Street. The dog across the road barking. Then he stood up, slowly, the way a man stands when he's not in a hurry, when he already knows what comes next. He brushed the gravel off his palms, looked down at the blood, looked at the red smear he left on the sidewalk. Then he reached inside his torn shirt pocket. The body camera was still there, the red light still blinking, still recording. Elijah didn't go home. He walked to his truck, turned the engine over. The old diesel rattled to life. He pulled out of the parking spot, slow and easy, like a man leaving church on a Sunday. But he didn't drive toward the farm. He drove straight to the county courthouse. And what he found inside those records would make the assault look like the smallest part of this story. Nah. He did not just drag that man across the floor like that. In front of everybody? And nobody moved? Not a single damn person stood up? I'm shaking right now. This is sick. This man better lose everything. I swear to God. The county courthouse smelled like old paper and floor wax. Elijah's boots echoed down the marble hallway. His torn shirt drew a look from the clerk at the records desk. She didn't ask. He didn't explain. He filled out 3 request forms: property records, rezoning applications, corporate filings.
The clerk brought him 2 cardboard boxes and a manila folder thick enough to choke on. Elijah sat at a wooden table under a yellow lamp. He opened the first file. And there it was.
Magnolia Land Partners LLC, registered 8 months ago. Listed as the buyer on 11 separate land transactions in the county. Every single seller was black. Every single price was below market value. Some by half, some by more. He opened the rezoning application next, filed quietly by County Commissioner Dale Whitmore. The application proposed converting 2,000 acres of agricultural land to mixed-use commercial. Shopping centers, warehouses, subdivisions. If approved, property values in the zone would triple overnight. Elijah cross-referenced the parcel numbers. Every piece of land Magnolia bought sat inside the rezoning boundary. They were buying cheap today what would be worth a fortune tomorrow. And the people selling had no idea. He pulled out his phone and called his attorney. Not a local man with a small office and a fishing calendar on the wall. Raymond Ellis, senior partner at Ellis, Barker & Cole in Atlanta. A firm that had argued before the Georgia Supreme Court 6 times and won 5. Raymond picked up on the second ring. Elijah, what happened? Elijah told him everything. The letter, the office, the assault, the overheard phone call, the rezoning documents. Raymond was quiet for 5 seconds. Then, do you want to file civilly, or do you want me to call the U.S. Attorney's Office? That question, the casualness of it, was the first crack in the illusion. Elijah Townsend was not a man who needed a public defender. He was a man whose lawyer had the U.S. Attorney's phone number saved in his contacts. Back at the farm, Grace was already working. She'd pulled Piedmont Heritage's full transaction history from public records, cross-referenced every sale with census demographic data, built a spreadsheet with color-coded columns. The numbers were ugly. 90% of below-market acquisitions involved black landowners. The remaining 10% were elderly white widows with no family nearby. Piedmont Heritage wasn't just discriminating. They were hunting. Grace selected a 30-second clip from Elijah's body camera. Just the drag. No context. No names. She sent it to a former colleague at a regional news station. Within 2 hours, the clip had 40,000 views. By dinner, it crossed 200,000. The comments poured in like a flood. Who is this man? Where is this office? Someone find this agent. Then someone in the comments connected the dots. A username with a Georgia flag posted one line that changed everything. That's Elijah Townsend. He owns half the farmland in this county. The clip kept climbing. But the video was only the match. The rezoning documents, the shell companies, the exposed money trail. That was the gasoline. And Elijah hadn't even struck it yet. The system responded the way systems always do. Slow. Careful. Just enough words to sound concerned without actually admitting anything. Piedmont Heritage Realty posted a statement on their website at 9 o'clock the next morning. 3 paragraphs. Corporate font. No names. We take all allegations of misconduct seriously. An internal review is underway. We are committed to professionalism and respect for all clients. Brad Hollister was placed on administrative leave. Not fired, not suspended. Administrative leave. Full pay. His name badge deactivated. His desk untouched. Like he'd gone on vacation instead of dragging a man across the floor. The local news picked it up that evening. Channel 4 ran it at the 6 o'clock hour. The anchor called it an altercation at a local realty office. Passive voice. No mention of race. No mention of the rezoning. The segment lasted 45 seconds. They used a stock photo of the building instead of the body camera footage. Sheriff Roy Calder showed up at the Townsend farm the next afternoon. He drove a white cruiser up the gravel road and parked under the pecan tree like he was stopping by for sweet tea. He was 56, thick neck, tan line from a hat he wore everywhere except indoors. His boots were clean. His badge was polished. His questions were not. "Mr. Townsend, I'm just trying to get a clear picture here. Were you asked to leave the office?" "Yes." "And did you leave?"
He dragged me out by my collar.
"Right, but before that, when he asked you verbally, did you leave?" Elijah looked at the sheriff the way you look at a man who just told you the sky is green. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a business card, and handed it over. "That's my attorney, Raymond Ellis, Ellis, Barker, and Cole, Atlanta. Any further questions go through him." The sheriff looked at the card, looked at Elijah, looked at the 4,000 acres behind him. Something shifted in his face. He put the card in his shirt pocket, tipped his hat, and drove away without another word. Meanwhile, Commissioner Dale Whitmore went on local radio, voice steady, practiced. He called the attention on his rezoning proposal politically motivated. Said it had nothing to do with any real estate firm. Said Magnolia Land Partners was a private investment group he had no direct involvement with. That was a lie. But nobody could prove it yet. Social media didn't wait for proof. The body camera clip hit 500,000 views by Wednesday. Hashtags sprouted like weeds. Hashtag Justice for Elijah trended in Georgia by noon. Hashtag Piedmont Exposed followed by evening. People in the comments didn't just watch. They shared their own stories. A woman in Macon said Piedmont pressured her mother to sell 40 acres for $60,000. A man in Augusta said they showed up at his uncle's house 3 times in 1 month. A retired teacher in Savannah posted a photo of a letter she received. Same language, same tone, same assumption of weakness. The counter-narrative came too. It always does. Anonymous accounts called Elijah a trespasser, said Brad had the right to remove someone from private commercial property. One comment got 1,500 likes. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. But the footage was the footage. There was no angle that made dragging a man by his collar across a tile floor look like self-defense. Grace made her move on Thursday night. She sat at the kitchen table, the glow of her laptop reflecting off her reading glasses. She wrote a thread. Not emotional, not angry, just facts, timeline, dates, document screenshots, public records anyone could verify. The letter Elijah received, the date of his visit, the overheard phone call, the rezoning filing, the formation documents for Magnolia Land Partners, the demographic breakdown of every property they purchased. She posted it at 10 p.m. By midnight, it had 2 million impressions. By morning, journalists from Atlanta, Savannah, and Washington were in her inbox. And then, Mrs. Loretta Banks called. She was 73, lived alone, sold 80 acres to Magnolia Land Partners 8 months ago for $120,000. She thought it was fair. She thought she was lucky. The land was now assessed at $1.2 million under the proposed rezoning. Her voice cracked on the phone. They told me it was the best I'd get. They told me the soil was no good. Grace closed her eyes, took a breath. Mrs. Banks, you're not the only one. If you or someone you know has ever been pressured to sell property under suspicious circumstances, put your story in the comments right now. You'd be amazed how many people watching this went through the exact same thing. Dana Price walked into the county prosecutor's office on a Monday morning carrying a black flash drive and a knot in her stomach. She wore a gray blazer she'd ironed twice. Her hands were steady, but her jaw was tight. The receptionist asked if she had an appointment. She didn't. She said she'd wait. She'd learned that from Elijah. The prosecutor gave her 20 minutes. She needed 10. The flash drive contained 14 months of files, emails, internal memos, commission spreadsheets, recorded phone calls. Dana had been collecting them since her third week at Piedmont Heritage, when she noticed something that made the coffee in her stomach turn sour. It started with the comparable sales data. When a black landowner came in asking what their property was worth, Brad pulled up a specific set of comparables. Low numbers, distressed sales, foreclosures 2 counties over. The data made the land look worthless. When a white buyer came in looking to purchase, Brad pulled up different numbers, accurate numbers, development projections, rezoning potential. The same land suddenly looked like a gold mine. 2 sets of books, same office, same computer. The only variable was the color of the person sitting across the desk. Dana's flash drive held the proof. 47 emails between Brad and the managing broker, Tom Kinney. The language was careful, but the pattern was obvious. They called black-owned parcels target properties. They called the lowball strategy community outreach. They never used the word race. They didn't have to. One email made the prosecutor sit up straight. Brad to Tom Kinney, dated 6 weeks before Elijah's visit. The Townsend parcel is the big one. If we can get him to move, the rest will follow. He's just a farmer. Shouldn't be hard. Shouldn't be hard. 3 words that said everything about how they saw Elijah Townsend. How they saw every black landowner in that county. Not as people with rights, as obstacles with price tags. The commission spreadsheets told the rest of the story. Brad received standard commission on normal sales. But for priority closings, every one of which involved a black seller and a below-market price, he received a separate bonus. Cash. Paid through a line item labeled consulting fees. Over 14 months, those bonuses totaled $143,000. Dana had one more thing. A phone call she recorded the day after Elijah's assault. Georgia is a one-party consent state. She was on the call. It was legal. Brad's voice, panicked, talking to Tom Kinney. If that video gets out, we're done. Make sure the Townsend file disappears. Tom's response? Already handled. The prosecutor asked Dana to leave the flash drive. She did. Then she walked outside, sat in her car, and cried for 15 minutes. Not from fear, from relief. 14 months of silence was heavier than anyone knew. While Dana emptied her burden, Elijah was building his case from the other direction. His attorney Raymond Ellis filed FOIA requests and subpoenas targeting county records. What came back was a roadmap of corruption drawn in ink and wire transfers. Commissioner Dale Whitmore's wife, Sandra Whitmore, was listed as a 20% partner in Magnolia Land Partners, LLC. The company was registered to a P.O. box in Valdosta, but its bank account was in Atlanta. Wire transfers showed money flowing from Magnolia to a political action committee called Georgia Growth Fund. That same PAC donated $68,000 to Whitmore's re-election campaign. The circle was clean. Magnolia bought black land cheap. The commissioner rezoned it to multiply the value. The profits fed back into the system that kept him in power. Everyone ate, except the people who lost their land. Raymond's forensic accountant found more. 3 of the completed sales had title irregularities, signatures that didn't match the seller's known handwriting, notarization dates that fell on Saturdays when the notary's office was closed. One deed was filed with the county 2 days before the seller claimed she signed it. Forged documents. In a county courthouse. Under the nose of every official who was supposed to protect the people who owned that land. Elijah brought everything to Pastor Jerome Wade's church on a Wednesday evening. A community meeting. Folding chairs on a linoleum floor, the smell of old hymnals and lemon pledge. 120 people showed up. Standing room only. Elijah didn't give a speech. He laid the documents on a table and let people read. He put the numbers on a whiteboard, drew the connections with a blue marker. Magnolia to Piedmont, Piedmont to Whitmore, Whitmore to the PAC back to Whitmore. Then he asked a simple question. How many of you got a letter? 31 hands went up. How many of you sold? 9 hands. Slowly, some of them shaking. Mrs. Loretta Banks was in the front row. She didn't raise her hand. She just looked at the whiteboard and whispered, "They told me the soil was no good." The room went quiet. The fluorescent lights hummed. Somewhere outside, a truck rattled past on the county road. Elijah had the evidence. He had the allies. He had the legal firepower. For the first time since that glass door slammed behind him, he felt the ground shifting in his direction. But what he didn't have, what nobody in that room anticipated, was that someone inside his own circle was about to try to shut the whole thing down. The cease and desist letter arrived on a Thursday. Thick envelope, Atlanta return address. A law firm Elijah had never heard of, representing Magnolia Land Partners, LLC. The language was sharp as a scalpel. Defamation, tortious interference, intentional infliction of economic harm. The letter demanded that Elijah retract all public statements, remove all social media posts, and cease contact with any current or former Piedmont Heritage clients. Failure to comply would result in immediate and aggressive legal action. Elijah read it at the kitchen table, set it down next to his coffee. The paper smelled like toner and threats. "It's intimidation," Raymond said over the phone. "They won't file. Discovery would bury them. But they're hoping you don't know that." Elijah knew, but knowing didn't stop the knot in his chest. 2 nights later, Grace saw headlights. She was in bed, just past 2 in the morning. The room was dark, crickets screaming outside. Then a slow wash of light crept across the bedroom ceiling. A vehicle rolling down the farm road. No engine sound. Headlights off. Just the pale glow of parking lights drifting past like a ghost. Grace held her breath. The light slid across the wall and disappeared. She didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, Elijah installed 4 security cameras, 1 on the barn, 1 on the front porch, 2 on the driveway. The smell of fresh drilled wood hung in the air all day. Then, Old Man Herschel called. His voice sounded 10 years older than the week before. "They came back, Elijah. Different man this time, suit and tie. Said if I don't sell by the end of the month, the county might reassess my property taxes. Said I'd owe more than the land is worth." Elijah gripped the phone. "That's not how reassessments work, Herschel. I know that, but my daughter doesn't. She's already talking to a real estate lawyer in Macon." The threats weren't random. They were coordinated. Someone was squeezing every pressure point at once. The law firm on Elijah, the midnight drive-bys on Grace, the tax threats on Herschel. A system protecting itself the only way it knew how, by making the cost of fighting higher than the cost of giving up. Then came the crack from inside. The Dawson family pulled out. James and Ruthie Dawson owned 110 acres east of town. They'd been part of the group since the church meeting. James had raised his hand when Elijah asked who sold. He lost 40 acres to Magnolia at a price that made him sick once he learned the rezoning numbers. But on a Tuesday morning, James called Elijah and said they were done. A mediator had visited them, offered a private settlement, sealed terms. The mediator also warned them that if the case went public, every landowner's financial records would be subpoenaed. Tax liens, debts, personal bank statements, all of it exposed. It was a lie wrapped in a legal word, but it worked. 2 more families went quiet after the Dawsons left, stopped returning calls, stopped coming to meetings. The wall Elijah had been building was cracking, 1 brick at a time. That night, Elijah sat on his porch alone. The rocking chair creaked under his weight. The air smelled like pine and distant rain. Lightning pulsed behind the clouds, but no thunder came. Just light without sound, like a warning with no voice. He thought about his grandfather, Samuel Townsend, a man who bought land when the law said he could and the world said he couldn't. A man who slept with a shotgun by the bed and a deed in a fireproof box, who told his children the only thing they can't take is what you refuse to let go. The screen door opened. Grace sat in the chair beside him. She didn't say it would be okay. She never said things she couldn't guarantee. She said, "You've got the evidence and the standing. The question is whether you're willing to lose some things to win the big one." Elijah looked at her. The porch light caught the gray in her hair. He nodded. The next morning, he made 2 phone calls. The first was to Raymond. The second was to someone Brad Hollister had never heard of, but whose name, within 48 hours, would be on every news broadcast in the state. Congresswoman Patricia Bell picked up the phone on the first ring. She was 54, black, represented Georgia's 7th District, had a voice like a courtroom and a reputation for not bluffing. She'd been tracking land displacement patterns across the rural South for 3 years, building a case for a federal land equity bill that kept dying in committee because nobody could hand her a smoking gun. Elijah Townsend just handed her one. "How far does it go?" she asked. "At least 11 transactions," Elijah said. "All black sellers. All below market. All connected to a rezoning scheme run through a shell company tied to a sitting county commissioner." Silence on the line. Then, "I'm calling the DOJ Civil Rights Division today, and I'm announcing a formal congressional inquiry by Friday. Can your attorney send me everything?" Already on its way. By Thursday afternoon, the Congresswoman held a press conference on the steps of the state capitol. Camera flashes popped like fireflies. The smell of hot asphalt rose from the parking lot behind her. She didn't name Elijah. She didn't need to. She named the pattern. Systematic acquisition of black-owned land through deceptive practices and insider rezoning. She used words like coordinated and predatory and a stain on the state of Georgia. The second call Elijah made that morning went to Grace's contact, Miles Covington, investigative journalist at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, 41 years old, wire-rimmed glasses. The kind of reporter who didn't write a story until he had the receipts stapled, highlighted, and notarized. Miles had been circling Magnolia Land Partners for 6 months. He had the corporate filings. He had the rezoning timeline. What he didn't have was someone on the inside willing to go on record. Dana Price said yes. She met Miles at a diner off I-75, vinyl booths, the smell of burnt coffee and bacon grease. She brought printed copies of everything on the flash drive, emails, memos, the commission spreadsheet, the recorded phone call. Miles read the email where Brad called Elijah just a farmer, and set it down on the table like it burned his fingers. "This is going on the front page." "When?" Dana asked. "Sunday." The third ally came from a place Elijah didn't expect. Professor Audrey Calloway, 60 years old, agricultural economics chair at the University of Georgia. She'd spent her career studying land dispossession in the rural South. Her research showed that black families in Georgia had lost 70% of their farmland in the past 40 years. Not through natural market forces, through a grinding combination of air property exploitation, tax manipulation, and rezoning schemes exactly like the one in Elijah's county. She provided an affidavit. Historical context. Data sets going back to 1970. The kind of evidence that turned a local scandal into a federal pattern. The evidence kept stacking. Miles Covington obtained leaked minutes from a closed county commission session. An unnamed official slipped them under his hotel room door in a manila envelope with no return address. The minutes showed Commissioner Whitmore proposing the rezoning in private session and referencing specific parcels by number. Elijah's land was listed as parcel number 1. The word acquisition appeared 7 times. The word community appeared 0. Raymond's forensic accountant cracked the money trail wider. Magnolia Land Partners was connected to a second shell company, Palmetto Development Group, LLC, registered in Delaware, linked to a regional development firm with contracts across 3 states. And that firm had a silent investor, a state senator named Wallace Greer, who sat on the committee that approved rural infrastructure funding. The web stretched from a county commissioner's desk to the state capitol. Black land at the bottom, political money at the top, and Piedmont Heritage Realty sitting in the middle, collecting fees for every acre that changed hands. But the last piece of evidence came from Dana. One more recording, made 2 days after the assault. Brad on the phone with Tom Kinney, the managing broker. Brad's voice was tight, rushed. "If that video gets out, we're done. Make sure the Townsend file disappears." Tom, already handled. Then Brad again, quieter. "What about the Price girl? She's been asking questions." Tom, "I'll deal with her." Dana's hands shook when she played it for Miles. Not from fear, from anger. 14 months she sat in that office watching them rob people. 14 months she stayed quiet because she needed the job. Because she was the only black agent and she knew what happened to the one who speaks up. Now she was speaking up, and the whole state was about to hear her. Grace organized a Facebook Live event from Pastor Wade's church. 200 people packed the pews. 45,000 watched on their phones. Landowners took turns at the pulpit, told their stories, names, dates, dollar amounts. Mrs. Loretta Banks stood up last. Her voice shook, but her back was straight. "They stole my land. They smiled while they did it. And they thought I was too old and too black to do anything about it." The live stream was clipped and shared 400,000 times. A national civil rights organization pledged legal support. 3 law firms offered pro bono representation. Everything was in place. The evidence, the allies, the public pressure. All that remained was the stage. And Brad Hollister had no idea he was about to walk onto it. The hashtag Piedmont Exposed hit the national trending list on a Wednesday morning. By noon, it had 12 million impressions. By evening, it was painted on a bedsheet hanging from the overpass on Highway 41. The original body camera footage crossed 12 million views. People who had never heard of the county were watching a man get dragged across a tile floor and sharing it with the caption, "This is still happening in America." Someone compiled a video, 3 minutes long, clips from the Facebook Live testimonies, screenshots of Dana's emails, side-by-side comparisons of the fake appraisals and the real market values. Mrs. Banks's voice over a photo of her empty field. "They told me the soil was no good." The video hit every platform. Civil rights figures reposted it. News anchors quoted it. A retired NBA player with 11 million followers shared it with one word: enough. Piedmont Heritage's Google rating dropped to 1.2 stars. 5,000 reviews in 48 hours. Local businesses pulled their advertisements from the firm's website. The sandwich shop next door took down the shared parking sign. Even the bank on the other side quietly moved its ATM away from the building. The rally came on Saturday. 800 people gathered on the courthouse lawn. The grass was still wet from a morning rain. The air smelled like damp earth and coffee from a volunteer table near the sidewalk. Handmade signs bobbed above the crowd. Our land, our legacy. Rezone justice. 4,200 acres of truth. A woman held a sign with Mrs. Banks's face on it. Underneath it said, "They lied to her." Pastor Wade opened with a prayer, his voice carried across the lawn without a microphone. Then he handed the megaphone to Elijah. Elijah stood on the courthouse steps. Same denim shirt, same boots. The torn shoulder had been stitched by Grace with white thread that showed against the blue fabric like a scar he chose to keep. He spoke for 2 minutes. No notes, no anger in his voice, just wait. This isn't about one man being dragged out of an office. This is about a system that's been dragging us off our land for generations. My grandfather bought his first 200 acres in 1947. They tried to take it then. They're trying to take it now. The methods changed. The intention didn't. And today, that system is on notice. The crowd roared. Phones went up. The speech was recorded from 200 angles and uploaded before Elijah stepped off the last stair. The county commission had no choice. They scheduled a public hearing on the rezoning application for the following Thursday. Commissioner Whitmore attempted to recuse himself, citing personal conflicts. The board denied the recusal unanimously and demanded he attend. Cracks spread through the walls faster now. Piedmont Heritage's managing broker, Tom Kinney, resigned on Monday. His resignation letter, leaked to Miles Covington within the hour, claimed he was unaware of the full scope of certain agents' activities. Dana's emails showed he approved every one of them. Sheriff Calder, under pressure from the state attorney general's office, finally filed assault charges against Brad Hollister. Brad turned himself in on a Tuesday morning, posted bail by lunch. His defense attorney held a press conference in the parking lot of the county jail. "My client acted in defense of private commercial property. This is a misunderstanding being exploited for political purposes." Nobody bought it. The footage didn't lie. The public hearing was set for Thursday at 9 a.m. Elijah's attorney had prepared a 40-minute presentation. Every document, every email, every forged signature, the full, unedited body camera footage. But what they were saving for last? The piece of evidence no one outside Elijah's team had seen would leave the chamber in absolute silence. The county commission chamber smelled like wood polish and old carpet. Oak panels lined the walls. Fluorescent lights hummed above rows of folding chairs that were full 30 minutes before the hearing started. Every seat taken. People standing along the back wall, pressed shoulder to shoulder in the doorway. The overflow crowd watched on a screen set up in the lobby. 4 news cameras on tripods lined the center aisle. 2 national outlets, 2 local. A dozen phones held up like candles at a vigil. 3 live streams running. Combined viewership climbing past 100,000 before the commission chair even picked up his gavel. Commissioner Dale Whitmore sat at the dais. 3rd seat from the left. Gray suit, American flag pin. His hands were flat on the table, but his thumbs wouldn't stop moving. The skin under his eyes was the color of dirty chalk. His attorney sat in the front row, directly behind him, close enough to whisper. Brad Hollister was in the gallery. Back row, navy blazer, no tie. His defense attorney beside him. Brad's jaw was set, but his right knee bounced under the chair. He looked like a man sitting in a dentist's waiting room, knowing every tooth had to come out. The commission chair called the hearing to order, cleared his throat, read the agenda item. Rezoning application 2024-07. Proposed conversion of agricultural land to mixed-use commercial. Public comment period to follow. Raymond Ellis stood up. He buttoned his jacket, walked to the podium, set a single folder on the lectern, opened it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief with the context and let the evidence speak. He started with the body camera footage. The room had seen clips, social media fragments, phone recordings, but this was the full, unedited file. 4 minutes and 37 seconds, from the moment Elijah sat down in the leather chair to the moment his palms hit the sidewalk.
The audio was clear. Brad's voice. Every word. You even know how to read a contract, boy? The collar grab. The drag. The boots scraping. Get your black ass out before I call the cops. The glass door. The shove. Go find a field, boy. The chamber was silent. A woman in the third row covered her mouth. A man near the window closed his eyes and shook his head. Raymond moved to the documents. Dana's email archive projected on a pull-down screen. 47 emails. The target properties language. The dual appraisal system. Brad's bonus payments for priority closings. The email calling Elijah just a farmer. Then the money trail. Magnolia Land Partners. Sandra Whitmore listed as partner. Wire transfers to Georgia Growth Fund. The PAC donations flowing directly to Commissioner Whitmore's re-election campaign. Raymond laid each document like a brick. Steady. Precise. No emotion. Just evidence stacked so high the room couldn't breathe. Commissioner Whitmore's attorney stood up. Objection. This hearing is about a rezoning application, not a criminal investigation. The commission chair looked at him over his glasses. Sit down, counselor. This is public comment. There's no objection in public comment. Raymond continued. The forged deed signatures, the notarization dates on closed office days, the demographic pattern, 90% black sellers. Professor Calloway's data showing 70% farmland loss over 40 years. Then he stopped, closed the folder, reached into his jacket pocket, and pulled out his phone. One final item. A voicemail, left on Brad Hollister's phone 3 days before my client's visit to Piedmont Heritage Realty. Left by Commissioner Dale Whitmore. The room shifted. Every phone went higher. Every camera tightened its frame. Whitmore's thumbs stopped moving. Raymond pressed play. The speaker crackled. Then Whitmore's voice filled the chamber, clear as Sunday church bells. Brad, it's Dale. Listen, the Townsend property is the keystone. The whole project falls apart without that parcel. You need to get it handled before the filing goes public next month. Whatever it takes, just don't leave a trail. Whatever it takes, just don't leave a trail. The room didn't gasp. It went dead. The kind of silence that has weight. The kind you can feel pressing on your chest. Whitmore's face lost every shade of color it had left. His attorney grabbed his arm. Whitmore didn't move, didn't blink. He looked like a man watching his own house burn from the inside. Brad Hollister stood up, walked toward the door. His attorney followed. Cameras tracked them down the center aisle, through the lobby, into the parking lot. Brad didn't look back. The live stream peaked at 320,000 concurrent viewers. The voicemail clip was extracted and posted within minutes. It trended on every platform before the hearing broke for recess. The hearing lasted 4 more hours, but the outcome was decided in the 30 seconds it took to play that voicemail. The indictments came fast. Brad Hollister was charged with assault, fraud, and conspiracy. He pleaded no contest to the assault. The fraud case moved to federal court. His broker license was revoked. His name was removed from every listing Piedmont Heritage ever published. The office on Main Street closed its doors 6 weeks later. The potted plants were still dead when they locked up. Commissioner Dale Whitmore resigned on a Monday morning. No press conference, no statement. Just a 1-paragraph letter slid under the commission chair's door before sunrise. A federal grand jury indicted him the following week. Corruption, wire fraud, conspiracy to deprive citizens of civil rights.
His wife Sandra's stake in Magnolia Land Partners was frozen, their joint accounts seized.
State Senator Wallace Greer denied everything. Then his name appeared in the Palmetto Development Group filings. He stopped returning calls. His office released a 4-word statement. The senator has resigned. The rezoning application was withdrawn. A court-ordered independent audit reviewed every Piedmont Heritage transaction involving black landowners over the previous 5 years. 14 sales were flagged. 9 were referred for further investigation. Mrs. Loretta Banks and 2 other families filed civil suits to void their sales. The court found fraudulent appraisals and forged documents. Early rulings favored rescission. Mrs. Banks got her 80 acres back. She stood on the property line the day the ruling came through, touched the fence post, didn't say a word, just cried into the Georgia wind. Dana Price was hired by Congresswoman Bell's office. She now works on the federal land equity bill. The bill passed committee for the first time in 4 years. Elijah and Pastor Wade established the Townsend Wade Community Land Trust, a legal shield for black-owned agricultural property in the county. 31 families enrolled in the first month. Elijah went back to his farm. Same boots, same denim shirt. Grace stitched the torn shoulder, but he kept wearing it. He walked his land at sunrise the way his grandfather did, slow, hands in his pockets. 4,200 acres of green under a pale Georgia sky. One evening, Grace called him inside. Her laptop was open. An email from a family in Mississippi. Same story, different county, different realty firm, same shell company structure. Magnolia's Sister LLC, registered in Alabama. How many families? Elijah asked. So far? 14. Elijah set down his coffee, looked out the window at his land, then looked back at Grace. Send me everything. This story was inspired by real patterns of land dispossession affecting black families across America. If it moved you, hit subscribe. The Mississippi chapter is coming. Drop a comment telling us what moment hit you the hardest. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And if your family has a story like this, we want to know. Bruh, I got chills. Actual chills. That voicemail part? Hell no. The way this man stayed quiet and let them bury themselves? Elijah is a different breed. Damn. Subscribed. Sharing this with everybody I know. Drop part 2 already, I can't wait.